I have a couple of things I want to talk about today. I'll start off first explaining a little bit about what we do at CSU. So we have the Center for Energy Water Sustainability. It's more of a research center where we work with the industry, regulatory agencies, and everybody bridging the communication gap between community and industry and the organized regulatory agencies. So we do a lot of university-based projects. We also do a lot of current research with operators and service companies like Halliburton. We also work with Noble Energy, Anadarko, and Cana. We try to be neutral consultants in the oil and gas world. We don't try to, go pro or no. We try to bring clarity through research. That's what we do, and most of our focus is related to water. We also do a bunch of projects with the Air Force as part of a Center for Environmental Management of Military Lands. So the first project I'm going to talk about is the Colorado Water Watch. Hopefully this won't take a lot of time before we get into the actual topic. This was a small project we started in 2013 at CSU. We had a lot of stakeholders involved with this. We had the Department of Natural Resources, Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, and KOGA, and we also had a couple of operators, and we also had Western Resource Advocates helping us out, bringing a new perspective to this. So what we tried to do here is we set up sensors for monitor groundwater quality near oil and gas wells. So what we tried to detect here was we tried to detect groundwater contamination due to casing breach for even migration to the aquifer and also surface spills. So we tried to track all these. We set up 9 stations successfully to monitor changes in groundwater quality in real time. These sensors were placed strategically in a field, and then we would get data, water quality data, in real time to our website that was public. So we worked with a lot of communities. We tried to understand what their needs were, what was bugging them about, and then we tried to put everything together in a website. We also had a lot of information explaining what's actually going on in the oil and gas world and how the contamination works, and does it really happen, or is there any science to it? So we tried to address all these questions. So this infographic basically shows you how the whole thing was set up. We set up sensors which would have a remote telemetry system which would transmit data to these servers, which would then be publicly displayed on a website. So these were the stations that we set up. There were 9 stations monitoring. All of these were in high oil and gas operation areas. This one was more of a control site. We kept it in an irrigation area just to see if there's a change in between these. So we actually ended up having a couple of events in the first Arctic one. Most of them were due to irrigation, surprisingly. And there was one incident here which says Sand Creek. So the process here was whenever we saw any events happening, we had a sophisticated anomaly detection algorithm. So it basically gets all the water quality data. It analyzes completely and tells you if it's an actual event or something just with the water level dropping, or if there is a serious situation. We had a team of experts going in and pulling samples. We had it certified, tested by a EPA certified lab. And once we get results, if it's normal, nothing to do with oil and gas, we just put it out on the website showing this is the report, this is what happened in exact. And if there was a presence of hydrocarbons detected, we directly go to COGCC and hand over the investigation to them. So they go and do their own kinds of investigation and see if there's any leaks nearby. So we had this event in this Sand Creek well, and the COGCC worked with the operator to finish out whatever was wrong with it, and they worked simultaneously and figured out whatever went wrong with it and just fix the problem. So that's a good example of this program working. So this is basically what I was telling you about, how we get the data, what happens once we get the presence of hydrocarbons detected. Then we hand it over to COGCC. COGCC goes and does their own suite of tests, and they come up with a report. We have a couple of meetings to go over the reports, and then they work with the operator to finish out the problem and then settle it out. So this is an example of where we strategically place the wells. So this one is our monitoring station. All the black dots, I'm not sure if you're able to see this or not, but all the black dots surrounding that are oil and gas wells. We worked with a lot of operators, letting them know that we're going to be doing this, and most of them are supportive, where they just let us do it. And we also, in exchange for this, we also provided the data to them as well in real time. So it's a win-win for both. So this is basically how it looks like. So we'll drill the well into the aquifer, and this is the pipe that is coming out of it. We put the sensor inside, and this is basically the telemetry system with a solar panel which would transmit data in real time. It required very minimum maintenance, so we just had to go take a look at it like twice a year. So this is how we define the criteria for selecting these locations for setting up all these monitoring stations. We needed to have a good density of oil and gas wells. We also had a good density of groundwater wells because that's where people actually care about the water, right? And we also did the contemporary and old well split of 2005 when the new regulations came in. The surface casing had to be better. And based on convenience, it was more like, how do we get access to the location, like without having all our students getting like safely trained to go out in the field where the oil and gas operation is happening to be safe. And we tried to use existing wells with conservation districts where they had existing groundwater wells where they just let us use the wells for putting our sensors in. We would give them data in exchange, so they would be okay with that. Just saves a lot of money in drilling because drilling a groundwater wells costs you somewhere around like $15,000. So we also had some volunteer landowners saying that they were worried about the water and they would be interested in us drilling wells in their land to get some water quality data out. So we worked with them. We found out the best areas. Some people did not even have oil and gas wells. They just reached out to us just to get a groundwater well installed. So we filtered out all that and figured out a way to actually get the best location for this. So this is how it would look like. These are the parameters that we'd monitor from those sensors. So we'd get ORP, which we used as a surrogate for methane in groundwater, and that we conductivity, pH, DO, temperature, water level. And this indicator will tell you basically if there's an anomaly or not. We also tried to do some air monitoring along with this Colorado Water Watch. We set up small sensors on top of this water quality monitoring sensor. And we tried to work with the EPA on doing this. We didn't get very far with this, but this is something we could definitely do. We have the capability to do this. So based on any hits that we get in the air quality sensors, we used to do the EPA certified analysis, basically the spatial data analysis, trying to understand what kind of contamination we're looking at, where the methane is coming from, where would be the origination of the source, and so on. So I'm going to focus more on the oil field water management aspect of the presentation now. So this project came about us when we started working with the Research Partnership to Secure Energy for America, funded by the DOE. This was like 4.5 years ago. We got like $1.4 million to do this project to optimize fluids management in the oil and gas industry. So basically, when we look at water management as a whole aspect, there are multiple parts associated with this. There's obviously freshwater management, where you're going to get the freshwater from, storage, and how it goes to the drilling and fracturing process. And once it goes there, what kind of produced water comes out, how you're going to manage that, where do you put it in storage and then dispose of it or treat it. There are multiple things going on, and this new part is the water remediation part, where we're focusing on treatment for beneficial reuse or augmentation. So this is basically how we box it up, saying, so there's a freshwater source, and then water goes in the drilling and fracturing process, and then when it comes out, there's a produced water stage, and then disposal. This is what the current trend was in Colorado when we started the project. So obviously there were concerns like hydraulic fracturing was depleting freshwater sources, trucks are causing road damage, and there's drought as well. So most of it was focused on disposal then. So how we tried to change it, we tried to include this box here which says treatment. So basically, initially, when we started this whole process, we worked with a lot of operators and designed that this treatment box would basically take the water which is not being disposed of or which can be treated. They treat it and reuse it for fracturing. So when it comes to treatment, there is just not one black box for treatment. You just cannot get the produced water in and get clean water out of it right away. There's got to be a fit-for-purpose methodology because each purpose, like where you reuse it, has a different water quality requirement. So in that way, when you focus it on the use, actually, you can optimize your treatment in that way so that it's you don't spend a lot of money in treating it to unnecessarily required water quality. You just treat it to exactly how it be reused as. So we came up with an idea of how to reuse it. So there's obviously golf course irrigation, car washes, toilet flushing, concrete mixing, cooling plants. All of these could be different aspects of using this produced water once it's treated. So we came up with a set of tools designed to address all these aspects. We have all these parameters measured here. There's cost of freshwater, volume of freshwater, water quality, and transportation aspect of it. As you already know, transportation is a big factor which helps in treatment and reusing, because that's a lot of the cost going in for treatment and disposal or reuse. So we came up with all these tools in separate aspects to make it work together. So So once we did all these desktop tools, we tried to put it on a website, which would make it really useful for operators to use it on the field, or in their offices. All these tools would be hosted online. It could be used on your tablet device, or your desktop, whichever, or your mobile device. So we tried to make it very user-friendly so that people could use it without us explaining how it works with every step. And there's a lot of dedicated support for customization as well, because what we did was modeled when we worked with a couple of operators. But with each operator, they have different types of drilling into different kind of formation they're using. So all the numbers change with that. And we have provided the customization for the operator to change it according to their needs. So basically, these were the tools that we built. There's a freshwater sourcing tool, which would basically tell you best way to transport freshwater from different sources to your storage facilities based on their capacity and availability. And then there was a water use tool, which would analyze how much water is being used in a specific geographical location for drilling and fracturing. And then similarly, we have a produced water tool based on historical data. This would calculate and estimate how much produced water you'll be looking at over time for a specific geographical location. Similar to that, we also calculated water quality on an aggregate. And because we're calculating the water quality, we could optimize the treatment, because we'll be knowing what kind of water quality you'll be looking at for the next couple of months. So treatment can be optimized in such a way, and based on the volume, you can either, based on the need, you can decide if you're going to dispose it or reuse it in different options based on the neighborhood reuse proximity. We try to work with COGCC and CDPHE on this. We have an open line of communication where we talk to them about all these regulations and how to make it work. The one big thing that we realized after having all these talks was there was a huge communication gap between operators and regulatory agencies, because they don't see eye to eye on everything. And this helped us a lot, because we were trying to do this good thing of reusing it for beneficial purposes. And we could work with operators and oil and gas companies and try to understand how this would work together. So I'm going to skip all this. I'm just going to explain all this when I do the demo for the tools. So this is basically an idea of how our planning aspect comes into the picture. So we have all these build-out plans from operators. We can estimate which grid they're going to be building drilling a lot of new wells, and in what time frame you're looking at. So we can also estimate how the production is going to move around a specific geographical area. So based on that, you can estimate what kind of water production you'll be looking at on a spatial basis. So this would help you decide if you want to use fixed treatment facilities or mobile treatment facilities. So this is how production varies with year on a specific geographical location based on the data that we receive from operators. So this would also help us decide what kind of pipelines we should be looking at, or mobile treatment facilities. So this is basically based on the development plan that we received from an operator in Colorado. So you have all these wells being drilled. So the heat map, the heated zones show that this is going to be the high production area, so that this could use a mobile treatment facility for this year. If it's going to be stagnant in that area for a long time, for the next 3 years, we could just set up a fixed treatment facility. So this is more the case study that we came upon when we did this in Greeley area. So we have all these drilling and fracturing process going on in all these producing wells, and this fresh water going in for that. We try to estimate how much fresh water is being used for that, and based on the wells that are producing over a period of time, we can estimate how much water we'll be looking at over time. And based on that, we can estimate the best place to put a treatment facility. And with that treatment facility, we'll be able to provide a specific treatment for multiple reuses in the Greeley area. In this case, we have meat processing. We also did car washes and golf courses for irrigation. So I'm going to skip ahead and go to the demo real quick. Can you open the browser? So this is the website we set up for all these tools. So again, this is the big picture. We had all these boxes to understand what we're trying to do here, and we built out all these tools to make it easier for us to understand. So you have the freshwater sourcing optimizer, which optimizes the freshwater sourcing part of it, and then water use. Then you go to produced water. There's a transportation cost as well, and then water treatment. So beneficial reuse or disposal. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the tool itself. So let's start with this. Sorry, we're just having some technical issues. I'll be happy to answer some questions in the meantime while we figure this out, if you guys had any.
I have one. Kirby Wynn. For this system, do you have some energy companies lined up that are going to try to see how they actually sort of implement this? Or have you talked to local governments, how they might apply this in some way in their permitting process or expectations?
We haven't worked with the local government per se, but we worked with 3 or 4 operating companies. They signed up with us for being a beta tester, basically giving us input on how to make this better. And we also licensed this technology. This was designed and developed at CSU. We've licensed this technology to a company called Produced Water Logistics, based out of Denver, and they are trying to do this for multiple operators.
Could you repeat the name of that company you licensed to again?
Produced Water Logistics.
Produced Water Logistics.
So this is the water use geoanalyzer. So we have some preloaded data sets here. I'll share the link with you guys. You can feel free to sign up for this. It's free registration. You can test it out. So I'm going to preload some data here. This is Texas, Eagle Ford. You can also upload your own data. We have some parameters that are limiters for your data, but you can see that and you can make your own data and try and test it out. So based on this data, I'm going to display all this data on a map. So you can see that we have locations, fracture date, well name, state, county, horizontal length that they drilled, and water use volume they used. So I displayed all that data on this map right here. I'm going to try and select a few. So once I selected those specific set of wells, I can get an analysis for those set of wells below here. So you basically get water use per well for the specific set of wells that you selected. You get horizontal length per well and barrels per foot metric. So you can use this if you're drilling new wells in the same location or the same geographical area. You have a good estimate of how much water you'll be needing for this. So you also have KPIs, key performance indicators, average water use per well annually, horizontal feed, barrels per foot metric, same thing. We also have a triangle relationship between the horizontal length and the water used. So I'm going to show the next one, the produced water geomodeler. Similar way, we have preloaded data sets here. This would be Colorado. We display all this data on a map. We have a start date and end date. I'm going to query all that data here. So these are the producing wells in this area. Similar to that, I'm going to select, let's say, a specific set of wells. It takes a minute, and you get all the data here. For that queried time period, you get how much water you're looking at. And we also use the ARPS model equation for decline curves for estimating how much water you'll be looking at over a period of time. So based on that, let's say, I'm going to give it a start date and end date. And say new wells per month would be 5. Okay. So once you click calculate, if an operator decides to drill 5 new wells per month in the same geographical location, you would be looking at 65,000 barrels of water coming out of this area for this specific time. So this would basically help you estimate what kind of storage facilities you'll be looking at, what kind of transportation, and what kind of treatment you'll be looking at. Because we also have a water quality analyzer, which does the water quality part of it, this one. So I'm going to show you this one next. It's a transportation optimizer. We have this similar set of wells. I'm going to display all these on a map. I'm going to add a treatment facility here. And I have a drive time here of 10 minutes, but you can change it to whatever you want based on how much you willing to spend for transportation. So for a drive time of 10 minutes, if this treatment facility is set up in this location, how many wells would it service? What kind of wells in the vicinity it would be servicing? So I click on this button. It basically tells you with a 10-minute drive time, I can service all these wells with the produced water. Based on the data we have, we can also estimate how much produced water we were looking at so that you can figure out the logistics for the treatment facility as well. So I'm going to try and do this one next. So I'm adding a second treatment facility somewhere, and I'm going to select these wells and see which one would be the closest treatment facility for transporting the water to. So basically this tells me, based on the analysis, this should be the closest treatment facility for this specific set of wells. I can give cost estimates for, you also calculate the distance and drive time. So you can give it cost estimates for dollars per mile, dollars an hour for the driver. You'll basically get the fuel cost and labor cost. You can estimate the whole cost factor here for treatment. The route optimization is basic Google Map stuff. It basically just tells you which would be the best route to take. We can also input factors here saying that if people are uncomfortable them using certain roads, we can block all those roads in this tool and make the truck drivers use the best optimized route based on the roads that are allowed. So again, we have a disposal optimizer as well. This is still in the beta phase. We're still doing some programming. For disposal, there's this huge factor called the utilization factor. This has led a lot of people, I mean, obviously in Oklahoma, they have induced seismicity issues because they're overpressuring the disposal wells. So this utilization factor basically tells you if it's a good time or not, what kind of capacity we can dispose of in this disposal well, and which would be the closest. So basically this analyzes all the disposal wells in the vicinity and tells you what kind of capacity we're looking at based on their pressure and utilization. So I'm going to show you the beneficial reuse optimizer. So again, preloaded data sets. We have golf courses, meat processing facilities, car washes, and farms here. This is all in the Greeley area. We also have a preset estimates of how much water they'd be requiring. So I'm going to display all the produced water in the area right next to it. So you have wells and what kind of water they're producing. I'm going to display all those on a map. So the black dots are all oil and gas wells, producing oil and gas wells. And you have the blue, which is car wash, green is the farm, golf courses, meat processing, and oil and gas wells. So basically, you can estimate what kind of cost of water they would be willing to pay and what kind of cost it would charge you to treat the water to that appropriate water quality, and cost of labor, transportation, and truck capacity that you're using. So basically, I'm going to use, let's say, car washes. So all the car washes you can see are highlighted here. I'm going to add a CPF, which is basically, let's call it a treatment facility for this purpose. So let's say the car washes are here. I'm just going to place the treatment facility here. This is where the oil and gas wells would send all their producing water to. And once it's treated, they'll be transported to all these car washes. So basically, this tool tells you which would be the most appropriate car wash for you to transport the water to based on the cost they're paying and based on the water they're needing and based on the water that you have to be treated. So you basically get cost estimates for doing this whole process, how much you're looking at for treating it, how much you're looking at for transporting it to the nearest facility based on the requirement, which would be most optimal for you. Somebody might need a little bit more water for a lesser cost. Somebody might need a little bit lower water for a higher cost. So it does all these, takes in all these parameters and analyzes in such a way that you can pick the best beneficial reuser in the neighborhood. So that's most of the tools. I'll share this link with you guys later. And can we go back to the presentation? So obviously, this is where we started, and that's where we got with the tool. There's a lot of barriers. There's socio-political barriers, technology barriers, regulatory, and cost that we have to go through to get this whole process refined out and usable for everybody. But we're trying to do that, and that's how you get to a workable solution for surface reuse. So basically, water treatment is only part of the solution. Despite claims of a silver bullet, economic water treatment is a commodity business. Treatment should be fit for purpose. That's what we're focusing on right now. We have all these different purposes, and when you optimize treatment for those specific purposes, you save a lot of money and you do a lot of good. So, and all our tools are based on historical data and whatever is available to us. We've been working with operators to narrow it down and make it more efficient. So it's always better to once you get more data into all these tools like this, it's all basically algorithms, right? So the more data we get in, the more filtered and efficient these tools are. So that's about it. The link for the website is here. You can feel free to sign up for it, and it's completely free. You can test it out. There's preloaded data sets for every single tool there is. You can feel free to load your own data if you guys are operators and test it out as well. And my email is there if you have any further questions you'd like regarding the tool. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you. So if we have any questions for anybody, take a few minutes.
Hi, I was curious as if you've ever presented any of this to the BLM and the regulatory agencies, because the vast majority of our area is federal land, and to make that to where it's capable of surface discharge, have you brought this to them and fought your fight with them?
Absolutely. We haven't presented these tools with them yet. We just had discussions with them regarding something like this that we could do, and they were really interested in helping us out. We spoke to somebody at CDPHE initially, and they were just saying that if you work with us and if you find an operator who's willing to do this with you as a case study to do a proof of concept, they'd be willing to do that. So we just actually found a couple of operators like last week to do this whole process. So hopefully in the next few months, we'll get this filtered out and work with CDPHE and CDC on a regular basis to get this done. And we'd definitely be glad to present it if there's any interest in that.
Hi, can you put the slide back up where you had the water origination going through all the moving parts?
Oh, sure. Is this one?
No, you had the pond
Oh.
and then the trucks driving from, was that on the website?
Was that on the website?
Okay, I'll check the website.
Okay.
My question is,
Anybody over here? Question?
the quality of the water that comes out would it be non-potable, or would it be gray, or at what level, or can you actually produce the water that would be actually usable by the general public?
It really depends on the regulatory agencies, but as far as we can see, depending on every formation there is and what kind of water we're looking at in different areas, we can definitely provide treatment in such a way that the best we can do is augmentation. And there are other uses like golf courses and meat processing facility that could use the water based on the regulatory limitations that we have. We can definitely design that as well. We just don't have a very good estimate for like I said, there's just not one solution for just everything. Everything depends on a geographical location and what kind of limits and regulatory limits we're looking at. So hope that answers your question.
Partially. The other part is, since we're looking at urban areas, what about the ones that already have a non-potable system where they do use it for watering of the city-owned landscaping and golf courses and stuff already? Has that been considered as a tie-in to the system?
We have, actually, but that's more of a cost factor, like what kind of money they're willing to pay external commercial sources of water compared to what they would pay for treated produced water, because there's a huge transportation factor associated with that as well. And based on all these logistics, it really comes down to cost of treatment. So there's got to be the treatment has to be really effective in terms of reusing it for all those purposes. And if it's too much of work and you're going to spend a lot of money on treating it, then it just wouldn't make a lot of sense when you're reusing it for purposes where they could get water cheaper from some other source.
Okay, the last part of this question is, what about the Colorado water law and reusing this water 1 or 2 or 3 times when you actually don't own the second or third use of the water?
To be honest, we actually quite haven't figured that out yet. We are still working with some companies to do the water law part of it. So yeah, it's a complicated process. There's lots of moving pieces. So we're trying to work with everybody we can, trying to understand this whole process. We've gotten a lot of really far compared to where we started like 1 year ago. But yeah, it's still a work in progress. Yep.
Other questions?
I saw you were looking at facilities around Greeley area and the
Right.
DJ.
Right.
It seems the biggest hurdle there is benzene concentration in the produced water. So that's going to take out a lot of uses for
Right.
for a recycled product. What's the lowest benzene level and at what cost you've been able to, or someone's been able to achieve at one of these injection wells?
Again, we actually haven't.
Produced water recycling facilities, rather.
Right. We actually haven't gotten to the part where we actually treated some water. We've done different parts of different projects working with Halliburton and Noble Energy and Anadarko, but we still haven't gotten to the part where we can actually, have a $1 solution for treatment in that aspect. And Greeley area was just something that was nearby, and we just decided to work with because we had a good operator who was working there, and they were willing to share the data with us. So that's basically just why we did the case study there. But that's a very good point. We'll definitely look into that. And if there's a better area you guys think of, we can definitely do a case study there to do a proof of concept as well.
Additional questions, anyone? All right, with that, how about a round of applause for Ashwin? Really appreciate that.
Thank you.